The stars did not mourn the dead. They never had. In the cold arithmetic of conquest, the Vethkai Empire had learned this truth across 130 campaigns spanning 4 centuries and 11 star systems. Stars burned indifferently above the ruins of civilizations, above the bones of species that had believed themselves unbreakable, and above the golden banner of warlord Zareth, which had never once been lowered in surrender. Zareth stood at the prow of the Eternal Dominion, his flagship, a vessel the size of a small moon, its hull plated in harvested asteroid iron, its weapons capable of cracking the crust of a planet in under 6 hours. He was 7 feet tall by human measurement, his carapace a deep violet that darkened to black at the joints, his 4 compound eyes scanning the blue-white sphere rotating slowly on the viewscreen before him. Earth. This one calls itself humanity, said his intelligence officer, Bravac, scrolling through intercepted transmissions. Bipedal. Single planet. No interstellar colonies of strategic value. Estimated military strength, primitive by Vethkai classification. Primitive, Zareth repeated, savoring the word. And yet they received our ultimatum and did not immediately surrender. No, warlord. They responded. He turned. Responded how? Bravac hesitated. In 20 years of service, Bravac had learned that hesitation cost more than bad news delivered cleanly. They said, and I translate precisely, come and find out. Silence spread through the bridge like frost. Then Zareth laughed, a deep, resonant sound like boulders grinding together. Around him, his officers joined in, releasing the tension in waves of contempt. Come and find out. The defiance of the ignorant. He had heard variations of it before, from the Drellian collective, from the silicon mines of Tau Cygni, from the water-breathing Mervith who had wept brine as their ocean worlds boiled. They all said something brave at the end. None of it had mattered. Set course, said Zareth. Standard approach formation. Single flagship. There is no need for the full fleet. He turned back to the viewscreen, to the small blue world. One ship is insult enough. Admiral Darian Voss received the confirmed approach vector at 0347 hours, Earth Standard Time. She was standing in the operations center 3 kilometers beneath Reykjavik, surrounded by 12 screens and 47 people who had not slept in 31 hours. She was 53 years old, built like someone who had spent a lifetime proving that endurance was not a metaphor, and she had spent the last 4 months doing the one thing that Earth's unified military command had quietly agreed was their only viable option. Not building bigger guns. Learning. Every piece of Vethkai technology recovered from the wreckage of border probes. Every intercepted signal. Every behavioral pattern from their 130 conquests, documented in the archives of the very species the Vethkai had destroyed, species who had managed, in their final moments, to transmit warnings across the void. Warnings no one had been positioned to use. Until now. They're sending one ship, said Lieutenant Commander Yemi Edaora from the sensor array. One ship, Admiral. Either they think we're nothing, or... They think we're nothing, Voss said flatly. Good. Let them. She pulled up the deployment map, not of Earth's orbital defense platforms, not of the visible fleet sitting in low orbit like a political statement, but of what lay beneath. The invisible architecture. For years of engineering concealed under ocean floors and polar ice and the dark sides of moons. Status on the Ember Array? Online. Synchronized. Waiting on your authorization. Voss looked at the trajectory of the Eternal Dominion cutting through space toward her planet. Toward 8 billion people who had spent the last year being quietly evacuated from coastlines and major cities under cover of climate infrastructure projects. Who had been told enough to be afraid but not enough to panic. Who deserved to go on living in a universe that did not belong to Warlord Zareth. Authorization given, she said. And tell the forward fleet, hold position, do not engage, and look scared. Edaora almost smiled. We are scared, Admiral. Then that part should be easy. Zareth watched the human fleet on approach, a ragged line of vessels, smaller than anything his fleet would field, visibly outclassed. They were holding position rather than fleeing, which he marked as either courage or stupidity. In his experience, the two were indistinguishable until the outcome. "They're hailing us," Bravak said. "Put it through." The face of a human female appeared on the primary screen. She looked tired. She looked, Zareth thought, like someone who had already accepted a loss and was trying to negotiate its terms, and something about that read as familiar. Correct. It was the look of the defeated. "Warlord Zareth," the human said. Her voice was even. "I'm Admiral Darian Voss, commander of Earth's Unified Defense Fleet. I'm required to formally ask, will you accept terms of negotiation?" "I do not negotiate with single-planet civilizations," Zareth said. "You exist at my discretion. That discretion ends in," he checked the chronometer, 40 of your minutes. "Surrender your command infrastructure and the casualties will be manageable?" Voss said. "Acceptable." She nodded slowly, as if considering this. "I appreciate the offer, Warlord. I'm going to decline." He leaned forward. "Then you will be 39 minutes, she said pleasantly. "I'd use the time if I were you." The channel cut. The first strike came not from space but from inside it. The Ember Array was not a weapons platform in any configuration the Vethkai had encountered. It was, in the simplest terms, a field inversion system built on principles derived from studying Vethkai shield technology, reversed, refined, and scaled across 11 hidden nodes stretching from Mercury's orbit to the Kuiper belt. It did not fire projectiles. It did not emit directed energy. What it did, when Admiral Voss gave the second authorization at T-2 minutes, was restructure the electromagnetic environment of a precisely calculated volume of space. The Eternal Dominion's shields required specific field harmonics to function. Those harmonics ceased to exist. The flagship's crew had 12 seconds to realize what had happened. In those 12 seconds, the visible human fleet, the scared, ragged, visibly outclassed vessels that had been holding position, executed a coordinated strike that had been rehearsed 11,000 times in simulation. Not their largest weapons. Not their most powerful. The ones that were precise. Targeted on the 6 structural nodes that Vethkai engineering, across all 130 of their conquered ships recovered and reverse-engineered, had never once thought to reinforce because they had never needed to. Because no one had ever gotten through the shields. Because no one had ever turned off the shields. The Eternal Dominion did not explode in one dramatic fireball. It came apart in sections, engineering first, then propulsion, then the great iron-plated hull splitting along lines that looked almost deliberate, as if the ship had always been designed to disassemble. The debris field spread across 40,000 kilometers of space. On the bridge, what remained of it, for 6.3 seconds, Warlord Zareth understood. Not cowardice. Not ignorance. Not the defiance of a species that didn't know what it was facing. A trap. They had always known what they were facing. They had studied it, mapped it, used it, and they had been waiting, not just for this ship, but for this exact moment of Vethkai overconfidence, the moment when 130 victories made a conqueror send one flagship as an insult. His last thought, before the bridge decompressed, was not fear. It was something closer to recognition. Ah, he thought. So this is what it felt like. Admiral Darian Voss watched the debris field stabilize on the long-range sensors. No emergency transponders. No escape pods registering on any frequency. The Eternal Dominion had been, as its name arrogantly declared, built to last forever. It had lasted 41 minutes past her deadline. She allowed herself one long breath. Around her, operations was very quiet, the silence of people who had not yet processed the gap between expecting to survive and actually doing it. "Signal the Vethkai home fleet," she said. "On what frequency, Admiral?" All of them. She straightened. Tell them their warlord is dead. Tell them we have the field and version specifications and will share them with every species in this quadrant within 72 hours. Tell them. She paused, considering her words with the precision she applied to everything. Tell them Earth is not a single-planet civilization anymore. We are the planet that ended a 130 victory streak, and we are open for diplomatic contact. She turned back to the view screen. The debris of the Eternal Dominion caught the light of the sun, her sun, and glittered like something that had once been terrifying and was now just matter, drifting. The stars burned on, indifferent as always. But tonight, Darien Voss decided, they burned a little brighter over Earth.